where you're standing, Kyle, what are the most common obstacles that you see law firms facing when they're trying to grow and scale their firms?
So everybody struggles a little different. And so I do see common themes, but what makes sense for somebody starting out in their practice and what makes sense for somebody who's very established, has a book of business, some additional employees, those situations are going to call for different action. So I kind of like to think of it as baking a dessert. Some people might want a chocolate cake. Other people might want blueberry pie. The recipes for success are going to look different. It depends on where you want to go. And it also depends on where you currently are. But I see some common ones. Hiring and retaining talent is a big one. That's one almost every law firm that's growing and scaling is going to run into. How do we get good people into our organization? How do we keep them there? How do we make sure they don't leave and compete against us? How do we figure out how to incentivize them and keep the culture healthy? Another common one I see is lawyers overemphasizing on marketing and neglecting the rest of the client experience. It doesn't do you any good if you spend a bunch of money to get people in the door and then they fall out the back end.
You know, I talk a lot about how the fact that I don't think law firms necessarily market themselves enough and there's enough kind of business development work going on. But I completely agree with your statement that, you know, you do all that work getting people in and then you give them a crap experience and they're not going to stick around anyway. So let's talk about mindset then. Obviously something that's crucial for growth individually and also as a firm. One of your things I know you like to talk about is why thinking like a lawyer can sometimes hold owners back.
So don't get me wrong. Thinking like a lawyer is very important, especially when you're starting out, because you're the main service provider and you're much more in the business. But as things grow, as things progress, you're really going to need to understand who you are and what is highest leverage activity for you. And likely it's not actually practicing law. So if you want to practice law consistently, you need to build a team around you that can support you doing that. But I would argue that you need to really shift to either a CEO type mindset or a talent manager. You really need to start thinking like a business owner and looking more broadly than how you might be a lawyer. And then the other big thing is, like I said, talent management. You cannot grow your firm if you don't have good people that you're plugging in and you're making them part of the organization. They're getting the mission, the vision, the values of your organization. They're saying, I want to be part of that. And everybody's moving in the same direction and raising the bar.
Talk to me about KPIs.
I really like KPIs, but every practice area is going to be a little different. What are the values of the firm? That's going to change your KPIs potentially.
Yeah.
So there's a few really important ones. It would make more sense to have a conversation with the actual law firm owner and say, hey, what's important to you? Tell me about your practice. What areas of the law are you in? That sort of thing. Three that are huge are lifetime value of a client. So understanding that, understanding what your cost to acquire that client is very, very important. And then your churn rate. How quickly do customers come in to your business? How often do clients come into your firm? And how long do they stay? How often are you losing them out the back end? And that might be they hate working with you and they leave, or that just might be, you know, their case is over. The other ones I really like are referrals received and referrals given. I'm a big proponent of networking and having a strong networking group. If you can't do the work, you have somebody in your back pocket that you can hand them off to. They're going to do a great job. And, you know, hopefully you have some kind of affiliate agreement with them.
A client might come for one specific thing, say they're, I don't know, having their wills written, and then say it's a multi-service law firm. There's obviously lots of other things that that firm could potentially help that client with. So it's interesting, isn't it, to find out like whether they come for one case, how much is being done to make sure that the client is aware of the other services that they offer and how they're doing that. So getting that data in the first place is obviously the first piece of the puzzle, and then you can work to strengthen that relationship with the client. Needless to say, you're going to be a big advocate of technology in modernizing law firms, which I am as well. And I worked for a legal tech startup for quite some time, and I was very shocked with how archaic some law firm processes can be, such as still taking checks and all that stuff.
I don't want to interrupt, but I got a really good story. The last place I worked, we encouraged fax. Oh, will you please fax that? One day, guy goes, oh yeah, sure, I can fax it. Let me just get in my time machine, go back to 1990, and I'll fax it to you right away.